Are you ready to uplevel your communication skills? Then you're invited to a transformative communication class. It's the Sales Scripts for Increasing Influence Masterclass. Registration is now open. This class will equip you with the right words at the right time. The topics that we're going to cover are you're going to learn the art of turning objections into opportunities so you can watch your sales soar. You're going to master the ability to convey your message with precision and clarity. You're going to discover some persuasive techniques that prompt immediate action by your prospects. And you're going to learn how to be more resilient in all of your sales conversations. And that's just the beginning. Go grab your ticket right now by going to yoursalesmaven.com/MC300 SEPT. That stands for Masterclass. Save yourself $300 in the month of September. So MC300 SEPT. Grab your ticket. You're going to get streamlined content. The class is divided into 3 easy digestible sections. You get timely access to the recordings. You can actually upgrade and get some coaching with me. And you're going to have 60 days of access to the recording so you can go back through again and again. Now, we are getting ready to send the workbooks to the printer. That means you have to grab your ticket now to ensure that your workbook arrives in time. It's a printed workbook. I mail it to you. You'll be able to refer back to it again and again and again. This is one of the best masterclasses, and it's the only one that I know that is teaching these types of skills with the sales component to it. So go grab your ticket by going to yoursalesmaven.com/MC300 SEPT. I'll see you in class.
Do sales conversations make you feel awkward or pushy? It's time to ditch the outdated salesy strategies. Your guide, Nikki Rausch, will show you how to combine kindness with selling skills to meet your prospects where they are, and in the process, how to uplevel your influence and income. Learn how to earn business easily and effortlessly. Here's Nikki.
Welcome, and thank you for listening to the Sales Maven Show. I'm your host, Nikki Rausch. Today's episode is part of the Mastering Excellence series. This is the concept that comes from my background in neuro-linguistic programming, where we learn that there is a structure to excellence. And once you understand the structure, you can then apply it to your own life and business to get similar results. Today's guest is one of my all-time favorite people, Mark Barber. Let me tell you a little bit about Mark. Mark Barber is an accomplished sales manager and professional, renowned for his exceptional expertise in sales coaching and the development of sales teams. Throughout his career, he has made a profound impact on sales organizations, fostering a culture of success and transforming the dynamics within. Mark's passion lies in the development, nurturing, and recognition of salespeople's achievements, fueling their growth and propelling them to unprecedented levels of success. With his invaluable guidance, he has consistently paved the way for individuals to realize their full potential, making him an invaluable asset to any sales team. Mark Barber, welcome to the show.
Oh, that's quite the intro. Thank you.
I'm so excited to have you here.
Pleasure.
And I would love for the audience to know a little bit more about you and a little bit about our background together, because Mark and I have known each other for, I actually don't even know how long.
2006, I think.
2006.
Like
so
yeah.
We've known each other. We've worked together. Mark is somebody from my background in corporate. He was a client of mine for many, many years. He, at some point, I'm talking for you. I'm going to let you talk, I promise. You were the West Coast VP of our largest customer when I was working at Hitachi. Then you became the executive VP?
Senior VP.
Senior VP. And I have never met or worked with anybody who is more of a professional and really takes his job serious, and at the same time is like the nicest guy and such a great leader of teams.
Oh, thank you. Very nice. Well, I've enjoyed working with you. My background, just real quickly, is I have 2 major careers that I've done. But my first major career was biotechnology distribution, and I managed a sales organization in the San Francisco Bay Area. And we basically did everything. If you walked into a laboratory, everything in there we sold, from equipment to DNA to protein to chemicals. And knowing that when I got a D in biology in Mr. Ment's 10th grade class at Santa Rosa High School, that it would be in biology, I would have paid attention more because it could have helped me in my first career. But I did well. And I ended up becoming a manager on the West Coast, and I loved it. And I learned a lot. That was probably my proving ground for becoming a leader. And I learned what to do, what not to do. I made mistakes along the way. And then I sort of fell into Troxel. And Troxel was actually just a stepping stone for me. I was going to take a cruise for a year, unwind from the last job, and just sort of, this was like an easy job for me to do. And I ended up loving the company. I was there for 16 years, and I moved my way into ultimately running the sales organization, senior VP of sales.
And what a sales organization you built. So for most people, they have no idea who Troxel is or what Troxel. So are you comfortable sharing Troxel as an organization, like just even sales wise, the size of that company?
Yeah, when I started, it was only about a $90 million company. And we were small. We had about probably 50 reps. And we focused on the K-12 education market. So anything from a projection standpoint, this is where I met Nikki. I call her Nicole, but everyone calls her Nikki.
You can call me Nicole. It's fine.
But that's where I met Nicole, because she was one of our top reps. She was amazing at what she did as far as how she managed us as a customer. But that organization, we started to grow. We had a few changes in CEOs, which was also a learning curve from a leadership standpoint, because you're not just leading an organization, you're also having to deal with who your leaders are in the company. And my leaders were CEOs, and they're not always, they can be challenging to work with sometimes.
Yeah.
So we went through a couple of CEOs, and I ended up with a great one named Mike. And I loved working with him. I became senior VP and worked under him. And we grew the company into $650 million before I retired. And they have a new name now as well, Under Bloom. But it was a great place for me to work. I love the organization. I love the sales organization. We had vendor partners like Hitachi, where Nicole worked. And it was a great, great time. And it was fun to grow a company. It was not easy by any stretch. So you don't kind of cruise through the job. It's for me, it was probably 70 hours, 80 hours toward the end of work, but I loved it. If you love your job, you put in a lot of work, and the rewards are great. And the rewards aren't the financial part from my standpoint. The rewards are how the reps perform and how the company performs.
And because I got to work so closely with you and specifically with your sales people for many, many years, got to see your mentorship of your sales team. And it was such a great lesson for me to watch the way you managed your sales team and the way that you also gave people opportunity to move up in the organization, and you challenged people to do more. I've actually even had Kylie Cantu has been on the podcast before, talking about the work that her and I did together. And you were so instrumental in supporting her and I to work together, for me to be able to mentor and coach her, and the success that she's had. That, it's kind of unusual, I think, in corporate for somebody at your level to really support and elevate her to the level that she reached at Troxel.
I'm happy for her. I think she's happy where she is today. And, from my perspective, my leadership isn't just about the people that report into me directly, because within an organization like Trox, we're a sales organization, but we're also in operations. You always look at a sales organization, everyone thinks that the sales reps are the most important people in the world. And to an extent they are, because without sales, you don't need anybody else.
That's
but
right.
Once you have sales, you need all these people that manage everything from getting the order entered, make sure the pricing's right, getting product to customers, getting paid, reps getting paid, all those things. And Kylie was a part of that for the organization. And I always felt like, although I managed a sales organization, I had a drive to work with the folks that supported my sales organization, because without them, you can't do your job and you need their help. And so part of that was learning who they are, where they wanted to go, and it's giving advice. And, people are, I don't know the word, I don't mean to say this incorrectly, but, you always feel like if you're at a certain level, people won't approach you, and people feel very uncomfortable approaching you. And I never wanted anybody in the organization to feel uncomfortable approaching me. I always knew everybody in the company and anybody could come talk to me. And I like that because they need somebody, and maybe it's not their boss, to get them coaching. Maybe there's an issue and they need help on how to get through something. So.
Yeah, I do think you take a real mentorship approach to sales and to the people. And that's the one thing I will say, to watch you gain the level in the organization, for you to move up into the level that you did, and for everybody in the company to feel like, oh, I can just go talk to Mark. Like, it didn't feel like that wasn't a weird thing to go like, oh, the senior VP. I don't think I could ever talk to the senior VP. Like, there was never that scare factor, which I always have really appreciated.
I never advertised myself. I never introduced myself as senior VP to anybody, because I'm not a, one of the things about being in leadership for me was I was never a title person. And so the title didn't matter. The business card didn't matter. And when I worked with reps in the field, they always called me out. I always say I'm working with them, but they always would say, oh, I'm with whatever you want to call me, senior VP. But I was never that, because when we went to see customers, they're not my customers, they're the reps' customers. They're my account executives' customers. I'm not the one building the relationship, they are. So it was always about them, making sure that they were front and center. And that was a way that I always looked at people, because for me, I was always better in the background. That's how I felt. People always said I was always in the front, but I always felt better in the background, and letting people go forward and pushing people forward to be recognized and to be acknowledged and all that stuff, which is so important.
So I just want to comment to the audience here, for the listener, something I think Mark just said is so crucial when you're thinking about bringing people up in your organization. And as your organization grows and as you continue to grow your business, bring people in to do things, and specifically sales, because that's something that comes up a lot, is people go like, well, I don't want to sell, Nikki. I just want to hire salespeople because I'm afraid of it, or I don't like it, or it's not the thing that I really want to spend my time doing. But the thing that I often find that owners struggle with is letting go of the ego piece. And that is a piece that I just don't see that from you. Like, I don't think you ever have shown up with ego. It's not like, look at me, I'm the most important person in the room. Like what you just said, because I've been on these ride days with you, with your reps in the field. And it wasn't like, well, look who just walked into the room. It was always just like, oh, this is their, their kind of their dog and pony show, and I'm just here to support. So when you think about hiring your own people, are you letting them shine? Because that is one of the things I think, Mark, that makes you really unique, is you allow for other people to shine, and you don't take it like, well, if they're shining, that took away 25% of my shine. Like, I just have never got that feel from you.
Yeah, I've never been, like I said, I've always sort of been, it's hard not to be front and center when you're a senior VP, because when you run the organization, you're on every call. I'm at every sales meeting, I'm front and center with everybody. And I make it a point to be front and center with everybody because it's important recognition. But, they're the ones that are doing the work, not me. They're the ones that are prospecting for the customer. They're the ones developing the relationship. They're the ones who have to deal with whatever we may have created as a problem to the customer. They have to clean up, if we've made a mess, which is not unusual for a sales company. We make mistakes, it happens. But, for me, they're the ones that need the recognition, and they're the ones that have to come forward. And I'm happy to help them shine. I don't know. I've never needed to shine. I don't know what to tell you on that. It's not my DNA.
Yeah, I love that. And I will say, just as being your friend too, like, you do shine on your own. Like you just never feel like anybody's robbing you. That's my impression. It's never that anybody is robbing you of what you're capable of. So, all right. So I do want to dig into some specific questions here for people, because one of the things that comes up oftentimes is like, what really makes a good salesperson? So when you're thinking about hiring a salesperson, bringing somebody into an organization, what are some of the characteristics, behaviors that you look for when you're identifying like, this could be a potential fit here? This person could really come in here and prosper.
Yeah, that's a great question. It's a hard one too, because, we've done a lot of sort of we took a look at all the attributes of all the top reps and what makes every one of them sort of a really great rep. And we looked at different reps, like Adela was one of our top reps.
Yeah.
Barry is one of our top reps, and a few others. We looked at what made them successful, and there was always something different that made each of them successful. But one of the things that I look at from my point of view is when I interview somebody, if I'm interviewing on behalf of an RVP to bring somebody on board, I want to know, how will they fit into the organization first? Will they fit the company or fit our culture? Will they help the culture? Will they be a contributor to the organization? That's the first thing I look at, because they have to work well with the RVP. They don't have to work well with me. They have to work well with their RVP.
Will you tell people what RVP means?
Regional Vice President. So
Yeah,
I was a
thank you.
senior VP, and I managed 8 RVPs who managed 140 reps total. So they had to work well with that RVP, with their manager. And then I had to see how would they integrate into their team that they would be coming on. So those are the first things I look at. The other things I look at is, what do they bring to our culture? For me, culture is probably the cornerstone of any company, because you look at, why do you come to an organization? And I had a guy named Ian, who I loved him, great guy in Southern California, hired him on. And when you hired him, he caught me off guard, because he said, I've been wanting to work for you guys for a long time. And he goes, I can't believe I'm here. I can't believe I'm working for you guys. And I thought, wow, that was a really impactful statement, because it goes to show that, you're getting some visibility out in the marketplace that says this is a great place to work. And that's where culture is really important, because it really changes the dynamics of an organization. And if you're all in sync and jiving well together, culture can really make up a great place to be. And it actually helps the individual, wherever you are, whether you're sales or your operations or marketing, whatever. It helps that person, like, I like what I'm doing, and I want to go the next step, or I want to do the extra mile to do XYZ to get something done. And you just had this whole organization kind of welling up. And that's what I loved about bringing people on board, because I want to make sure that they were a part, they would add to the culture of the organization. The other thing that I look at that is most important is drive. And drive is the biggest thing for me that shows me that they really want to work hard. There's a guy named Frankie. I won't use his last name, but Frankie, I love that guy. He's out on the East Coast, and we all interviewed him. I interviewed him, the RVP interviewed him, and my VP of Business Development interviewed him. And we interviewed all these other people. And we came back and we listed him as number 1, 2, and 3. Each of us did independently, because he had such a drive to sell. And he sold himself to me and to the RVP and to my VP of Business Development, because he really wanted to work for us. And he really said, this is, from his point of view, he knows what he can do. He knows he'd be an asset. Give me a chance. And he had to step aside and step into like a broom closet to interview, because he was at his job still. And he just said, I so want to work for you guys. And I said, he just said, you won't be sorry. Give me the chance. And he didn't have all the background that I wanted, but there was something about the guy that felt great. And when he came on board, it's like, man, he just hit it running. And he's like number 2 or 3 in their company. And he does a massive amount of business, and he does customer service. He takes care of his customers. He's always available. But he had that drive when he started that was really impactful for me. And that's the one thing that I sort of look at. Do you have passion and drive? And I don't care what you sell. Give me an example of your last job and tell me how well you did and why you did well, and give me some examples of successes and show me that, I want to see that drive. So those are probably intrinsic things that I see in people, that it's just experience of interviewing and getting the right person. Interviewing is rough. Everyone's on their best behavior. Everybody's perfect. And those that say that they're not, and those that can tell you I have these things to work on, are the person that are most interesting to me, because they're not portraying themselves as a perfect person. Mm-hmm. Anybody who does, I have a challenge with, because we all have challenges and things to work on. It doesn't matter how old you are. I'm old, and I always have things to learn. But I think having those types of, you kind of gain that through interviews. And I'll go back to the culture piece, which is really important. It's the one thing that I found that helped my retention rate with the organization. We didn't lose reps. We kept reps. And if we had reps that left, we brought them back and said, hey, don't go. I mean, how many times does somebody leave and they just let them go?
Yeah.
You know, we had 4 reps and 1 left and he regretted it. And 3 we were able to retain. We brought them in, showed them, you know, here's your territory. Tell us what you're going to be paid. Here's your new job and let us walk it through. And we helped them understand. And each of them said, I'm so glad I stayed. But the other part was I wanted them. You know, I said, don't go. I mean, I don't want you to go. I'm not afraid to say that. I don't want you to go. You're a great rep. You know, what can we do to keep you? And so I think the culture part was pivotal in those portions where we try to get people to stay, because that's a big deal to an organization. You can't replicate that, and you can't guess that it's going to be somewhere else until you experience it somewhere else.
I can't even imagine how powerful it well, of course, I always say my all-time favorite song is Cheap Trick, I Want You to Want Me. And if somebody said to me, don't go, we really want you to stay, that would be such a huge motivator for me. And I can only imagine for the reps that got to hear that from you, from the senior VP to say, like, we don't want you to go. We want you to stay. That must be so satisfying. I'm interested in your perspective on this too, because I often say, I think from all my years of working with thousands of sales reps, but definitely over the years in my career of working with some of what I think are some of the best salespeople that I think are just around, right? Like you named a couple, I have a few more that I can add to that list too. And I always say the best reps are motivated by one of 2 things, or sometimes a combination of both. And that's money and recognition. What do you think about that?
It's funny because we did our national sales meeting, which is my favorite, hands down, my favorite time of the year, because I get to see everybody first off.
Mm-hmm.
To, you know, maybe a couple adult beverages, and you've been to many of them over the years.
Yes, I have.
And, they were fun because it was great to recognize people for their accomplishments. It was great to have, you know, sales. Everybody knows in sales who's going to win, because if you all know the goals and you all hit your certain goals, you know you're getting an award.
Yeah.
But we started doing a lot of different things. We tried to create a lot more recognition awards to people that weren't expecting it for, even though they may not have hit their number. There may have been some extenuating circumstances that prevented them. But, you know, here's an award for just giving it your all, or here's a recognition for, I know you didn't, it's not like you didn't make it, but you really tried your best.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's important. The money is money. You know, I can tell you that if you get to an organization where you're paid a ton of money, but you hate where you work, the money at one point won't be a factor, because you have to love your job. And I've had many people who wanted to go, or there's people that have wanted them to go because they weren't happy. And I said, if you don't like your job, quit. Go find a job you like to do. But, you know, my life is 3 things. Do you remember my 3 things? My 3 things are my personal life at home.
Yes.
My life with my family, my mom, brothers, sisters, and my job. And when all 3 are humming, life is good. I mean, life is great. When work, it can suck. It can be rough. It can be stressful when it sucks, when it's challenging, excuse me. When work is challenging, you got family and friends to lean on. And then when family and friends are rough and work is there, it all sort of balances out. But when you work as much as we work, if you don't like what you're doing, go find a job you like to do.
Hey, the Sales Scripts for Increasing Influence Masterclass registration is now open. This is only taught once a year, so you're going to want to grab your ticket now. The topics that we're going to cover in this class are things around turning objections into opportunities, how to master your ability to convey a message with precision and clarity. You're going to discover some persuasive techniques that are game changers. This is from my background in NLP. And you're going to learn how to be more resilient in all your sales conversations. And frankly, that's just the beginning. So you're going to want to grab your ticket right now for the class. It's launching in September, and you got to get your ticket now in the month of August in order to participate. So I'm going to give you a code that's going to save you $300 off your registration as long as you use this code. Go to yoursalesmaven.com/MC300 SEPT. Go grab your ticket now.
because all you end up doing is being very unhappy and becoming bitter. And that's not a way to be in a job. And I think that when you start looking at what you do and your background and start putting a resume together, you surprise yourself at what you can do. And then you realize the net worth.
One of the things I remember early on, as you and I were starting to work together and getting to know each other, we spent a lot of time, I think, in your first couple of years in that organization, because we did a lot of trade shows together, a lot of travel, a lot of trips, a lot of ride days with sales reps. And I do remember one of the things that was very surprising in the best way was I've learned a lot of great lessons over the years from you, but this is one that has always stuck out, because you talk about those three things, like your home life, your family, and your work, that you were always really clear about taking time off. And in the corporate world, I feel like, at least when I was in corporate, it was kind of frowned upon. Like, you don't need to take all your vacation days. Like, why would you do that? Or like, why would you take these extended trips or extended time off? And you were always really clear about your boundaries on that every year, I know that you guys take a trip. It's something really big and fun and exciting, but it's very much who you are. And you work like nobody else. Like, you're such a hard worker, but when you're away, you're away. Like, you really are able to shut it down. Do you agree with that?
Yeah. Well, do as I say, not as I do, because for me, when I go away, I usually end up working. But for my reps, or for the reps, or even the RVPs, it was like, you got to take time off. When business is good, you've got to take time off, because it's whatever you've gotten to get the business to be really good wasn't easy. There was just so many obstacles that you had to get over to get there. You need to sort of relax and enjoy and celebrate. And even when work is really rough, you need to break away. My best time to really understand what I want to do in my organization is when I go on vacation. And I know it sounds weird, but all the noise goes away. It just stops. All the, whatever you want to call it, whatever your quantity of emails, mine was 200 to 400 a day sometimes.
Yeah, crazy.
And the noise just sort of stops. And all of a sudden you get this epiphanies that you can start really looking at what I want to do, because the noise has gone away. For my team, for my RVPs and for the reps, it was very big for me, for them to take vacation, to get time away. There's a rep of mine named Nick years ago sent me an email that said the well-traveled salesperson. It was an article about reps that travel and, how it rounds you, different experiences in the world, all that stuff. I thought that was really good. And he wanted to talk about that, only to tell me that he wanted a 3-month honeymoon for his wife. So I thought he set me up pretty well.
Yeah, he did a good job. That's a good setup.
Good job, Nick. But, there was a lot to be said for that. I have one of the top reps here in Arizona, Austin. I love that guy. And he never took vacation. I finally said, just go somewhere. And he went, and he just got the bug, and he unplugged. The world didn't stop.
Yeah.
So we'll take care of customers, but nothing happened terrible. And you got a break, and you can't be defined by only work. So.
Yeah, I will say that was a very, very hard lesson for me to learn, because my whole identity was so wrapped up in work for so many years. So that was a hard lesson.
Yep, I get it.
Yeah, yeah. All right. So anything else when you're thinking about what does it take to motivate and drive your salespeople? And I want to specifically ask you this question when they're struggling, because I think everybody on your team will have struggles at some point. Even your top reps potentially can go through down periods. What do you think is the best way to motivate and keep them going?
Well, with the reps that I had that were having performance challenges, I really did sit down, and even I would ask the RVPs if they wouldn't mind if I just sat and talked with the rep a bit. And it was really about trying to help them figure out, let's look at a 90-day roadmap. Let's just kind of figure out. And for them, the noise is also there too, because it's customer noise, vendor noise, it's internal noise. And then it's their boss probably like, oh, you're not at your plan, or you're not at numbers. And I think part of it is, if you feel there's an investment that should be made in these individuals, make the investment. If you feel that inherently, I think they're going to do well, let's figure out how we help them do well, and not just throw them to the lions and like you're in sales, figure it out. Everybody
sink or
needs
swim.
Yeah, we all need a little bit of help. I would always sit back and just try to understand what their obstacles were, what their challenges were, what is preventing them from being the success that they want to be. A sales rep knows when they're not at plan. It's
Yeah.
black and white. You have a
Yeah.
number, you're either at the number, you exceeded it, or you're not. You can't
Yeah.
just say, oh, I didn't know I wasn't at plan. You know that you're not making numbers. The best reps, if you look at this going back to qualities of rep, the best reps will come to me or their manager and say, you know what, I'm struggling. I'm not making it the way I thought. It's just really frustrating. Can we talk about this? Like, gosh, yes, I would love to have that conversation. And the worst ones are those that just push it away like it's not happening. It's like, you can't ignore it because I can physically see your numbers. I can see
every day. Yes.
every day. And so I think a part of that is really to give them some focus and take away some of their noise and try to structure back to some basics on what they can do to redevelop their territory, to go after new things. If they have a problem with a quote or a bid, let's walk it through. If you lost one, let's post-mortem it and figure out what we could have done differently that could change the outcome. And it's never about, you did this wrong. It's never about, why didn't you do this? It's always about, let's walk through what happened. Could we have done something differently? And there's just a way of leadership and coaching from my point of view that doesn't just sort of hit them over the head, because that's part of why they don't come to the manager. Sometimes they're afraid to say, I need help, because the minute you say that, well, I don't want you, we'll go find someone else.
Yeah.
It's better to try to coach and develop something into somebody into success versus just letting them flail and wane and just go by the wayside.
Yeah.
So
and having to rehire somebody.
I think a manager can take a really active approach and really sit down to understand what they can do. Some of them are just problem people that they may not be best for the organization. And those folks that I've had where we've chosen to part ways, in the end has been great for them. They've come back, I found a great job, I'm happy that I'm in better sync. Is like, all right. And not everyone's going to end their tenure with an organization and find something else and have that great outcome. But a lot of them are like, you know what? I needed a kick. I needed a push. I was stagnant and I found something else and I'm happy. It's like, awesome. I'm happy about that.
You always, there's some phrasing that you have. I have a few of them that I use often that I call my Mark Barber sayings, but the way you just said that, we part ways. Whenever Mark talks about letting go of sales rep, you always say, well, we parted ways, or we've parted ways today, or that was always just, and it felt like there was so much kindness in it versus like, I fired that dummy. It was never that. It was always, well, we parted ways.
It's hard. I mean, terminations are difficult. From a leadership standpoint, it's my least favorite thing to do. And it's abrupt sometimes. The thing that I learned, I had an epiphany probably my third or fourth year with Troxel Communications when we started. And my epiphany was that I had somebody leave and it's like, oh, well, why are you leaving? Like, well, my wife and my husband got relocated and their job is better, blah, blah, blah. Like, oh, why did you leave? Well, we got married and we want to move to XYZ. My epiphany was that I may have, from a team when I started, I had 35 account executives rolling into me as I started. My epiphany was that I had 35 lives. So there was 35 significant others, wives, husbands, there was children, there was divorce, there was marriage, there was death. There was life that actually went on that impacted their performance as well, or impacted what their day was. And that was a huge epiphany for me to really start understanding that I have beings that work on our behalf and they have challenges in their lives like I do. We all do. And that was a real eye opener for me. And it really changed my perspective on people, and it changed how I look at people as well. And it was a good thing. It was good to realize that. I think sometimes we don't always recognize that they have personal lives as well.
Yeah. I love that you just commented on that. All right. I have one more question for you before we start to wrap it. I honestly, and only because for the sake of your time, because I could sit here and talk about this stuff with you for hours. I'm super fascinated and I love this. But I'm interested in your perspective around when an organization or a business owner is going to bring somebody onto their team, what do you think is the requirements of that leader? as far as to train these people up, because this is a challenge, I will say. I think a lot of people are like, it's sink or swim, figure it out. But that is never the impression that I got from you, and the way that you would bring your people in, and the resources and the training and the things that you would provide. So I'm interested in your perspective on that.
That's a great question. I think it looks at an organization's onboarding program, and we worked over the years to get ours to be better and better. And some of it was a little overkill, and you sort of ratchet back a little bit. But you had to look at, from our organization standpoint, you had to look at, what do they need to know? First off, it's everything from, it's how do we pick, pack, and ship? First off, how do we do business?
Mm-hmm.
How do orders get entered? How does customer service work? You have to know all these things, because you're going to be in front of our customer. They're going to ask you a question. I don't know isn't a great answer every single time. So they have to have some general knowledge about how we run our business systems and all that stuff. You have to give them a formal program, and we did a good job. Mark Duff was our guy that did training.
Yeah,
it was very good about giving them just the basics of what they needed to understand who the organization was. The second part was our partners, like you with Hitachi. I leaned on you guys a lot because I needed your help in training them for the products, and not technically, but just how do you guys sell the product? How do you present your product to our customer base? And I wanted my team to be able to have that comfort. And the more training that they got from a vendor standpoint, the better, because you sell what you know.
mm-hmm.
First off. And I found that when I went back in biotechnology, I was only selling one thing, because it's the only thing I knew in biology that I remembered.
Yeah.
I had a vendor train me on something else, and I just said, would you help me? Just train me. And so she trained me, and my sales in the area grew because I started being comfortable talking about it. When you're uncomfortable and don't have the answers, you're sheepish to bring something up because you don't know the answers.
Yes.
And you don't have to be an expert. Being a distribution sales, like we're a Barber, a reseller. We represented a lot of product. You can't be experts on everything, but you can have a good general knowledge base to say, you know what, let me check into that. I'll come back to you. It was also in the field to see how they interacted with customers. I was most interested, how do you present the organization? How do you answer questions that are difficult? How do you answer objections? Because for me, a sales rep, I have Clint was one of my reps that came back as an RVP.
I love Clint.
That as well. He calls it, reps tend to do a show up and throw up. They just
Yeah.
They just tell you everything they know.
Yes.
The biggest thing, that's the most difficult thing this is what I train the reps is to listen.
Yes.
And the biggest issue that a rep has is they don't know how to listen. And what they want to do is, the minute they hear something that says, I know the answer to that one, they just boom right into it, and then interrupt the customer. I have right on my pages, I have one here, like on this page, I have an L here, and I write keywords.
I do that exact same thing. Now I'm wondering, did I get that from you? Because I still do that.
The keywords are for me to, if somebody says something and I want to remember it, I want to say, at one point, I want to talk about it, but I don't want to interrupt them. I just write, I don't even have to look. I just write the word down really quick. And then I end up with this list of keywords, and I can go back to those and say, you know what, 10 minutes ago or a few minutes ago, you talked about XYZ. Can we come back to that? And what it does is it reminds me to bring it back up if I think it was important. It doesn't interrupt the customer, which I have a very pet peeve on, is interrupting customers. My first manager, Lynn Yates, I drove her up the wall at VWR for doing that. But you end up with all these keywords, and some of them that you wrote down aren't relevant. And so you wouldn't, if it wasn't relevant to actually bring it up at the end of the conversation, then it wasn't relevant to have interrupted somebody either. And so I end up with all these words, and as I go through the rest of the conversation, I cross off. They may have brought up what I wanted to talk about, so I cross it off. And I end up with a few keywords left. And if I want to come back and say, you know what, there's one more thing I want to talk about, I'll pick one of those. If there's not, I don't worry about it. But it's my way of keeping my focus on the conversation. It's my way of coming back to something that I thought might be important that I want to recap with them, but not interrupting the customer and letting them speak. And there's a thing that I teach my reps, and most of them will tell you, is called a pregnant pause. Ask a question, don't answer it. Just close your mouth and wait. Give them a moment to hear the question, process the question, and give you an answer. But the worst for me is when a rep answers the question that they've asked of the customer. And it just drives me up the wall. So pregnant pause, give yourself a couple of beats, let them answer. And if there's a 3-second pause, you don't need to fill it. It's okay to have a moment of just, because we end up just orating sometimes. And that's not the way to sell is to listen.
Yes. Agreed. I always say silence is an advanced selling skill.
And it's broken sometimes.
And I have to teach it oftentimes with my clients too. I was super blessed in the beginning of my business for many, many years. You guys used to fly me in every time you would hire new sales reps and let me spend the day and train them on selling skills. And I'm so grateful, one, for my business to have, still been able to work with you even after I left the industry, and to get that time with your salespeople.
To hire you, wouldn't let me hire you. So anyway.
That's true. That's true.
I tried.
If I was going to work for anybody, Mark, it would be you. I'll say that.
Appreciate it.
Okay. So thank you so much for having this conversation. As we start to wrap up, again, this to me was a conversation that I have wanted to have with you for years. I love the idea that you were willing to do this, because there's no upside for Mark to be on my podcast necessarily, because it's not like organizations that are, have a $650 million sales team are necessarily listening and going, we need that guy to come in and fix our sales team. However, if you know somebody that has a sales team that needs some real leadership and some mentoring, Mark is your guy for that, I will say. So anyway, as we bring it to a close, I always like to ask you, I call it my little something extra section. So here's a couple questions if you're willing.
Mm-hmm.
The first one is, what brings you pleasure and or joy?
I have, as I've gotten older, I have a core group of friends that I really love, that I invest time in. I'm not somebody that has 1,000 acquaintances. I have a very finite group of people. And if I see them, if I ever saw you out, love to have dinner and just catch up. That I love. I travel extensively. I retired in January of 22. I think I stopped working. And I've been on a travel binge ever since, and I go all over the world, and I love that. I just started working for a small company recently to do this, is to build out of a small team, and I'm thrilled to be doing that. It's what I love to do. So I think it's just sort of hanging. I live in Arizona, so today it's 117. So it's a little on the warm side. I was in San Francisco yesterday. It was 63 in San Francisco yesterday. Came home to 117. It's like, man. But I have a great life, and I've worked hard to create a good balance in my life, and I've worked hard to retire. But for me, it's just being around with friends and talking about the good old days and talking about stuff that's coming down the road.
Yeah, I love that answer. All right. What's something people would be surprised to learn about you? I just am asking that for my own personal, because I feel like I know you pretty well.
I don't know. I don't speak any languages other than, English. I should speak Spanish. My mother is Mexican. I was born in England, that people don't know. So I'm a British subject by birth. My dad was in the Air Force and we lived overseas for a bit in England and France. I don't know.
Does that mean you have dual citizenship?
I can, yeah. I can actually apply for my UK passport, which
I didn't know that.
I may do that. But I don't know. I don't say that I have a boring life. I have the best life of anybody I know. I love my life. I'm enjoying it very much. I've loved what I've done. Leaving the organization, retiring from my last company was really difficult to do, because I absolutely loved what I did. And I loved my job, but it was also time to move on. And I'm glad that I did it. And, for me, it's just looking at the next chapter of my life and enjoying that part. And if it brings me another job, I'll do that for a bit. But I like my free time.
Yeah, of course. All right. What is the best way for people, in case there is somebody out there that could benefit from working with you and having you bring you into to manage their sales team or help them build their sales team? What's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Probably LinkedIn. They can reach,
Okay.
I'm actively on LinkedIn, so they can look up Mark Barber. And if you just add in Troxel, Troxell, it'll pop up
Yeah.
and you're welcome to link in through a message. And I respond really quickly on those as well.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, Mark, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. I appreciate you. I'm so grateful to know you, to have you in my life. And thank you.
My pleasure. And if I can say one last thing for you, I love what you've done with Sales Maven. I love the success that you're seeing. I see you on all over the place, things, Facebook and LinkedIn and stuff. And I love the fact that you wouldn't come work for me because you wanted to make your company go and you wanted to do what you had a vision of what you wanted to do and you're achieving it, which I think is, I love that because it wasn't easy to do and it's not easy to start. And I watch all the sort of followings that you have. I look at who you work with. I look at what you've accomplished and it's impressive. And I'm happy to say that I'm proud that you've done what you've done.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Welcome.
All right. And for you, the listener, thank you so much for being here. I hope you found this conversation as valuable as I did. I would love to hear, what was your biggest takeaway from today? What was something that Mark commented on or said that felt like a big aha moment? Would you please reach out? You can reach me and Mark on LinkedIn. And if you know somebody who would benefit from listening to this episode, please share it. Thanks for being here. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. Take care.
Thanks for listening to Sales Maven. Visit us online at yoursalesmaven.com/maven for more resources to boost your confidence and skills.
Are you ready to increase your confidence in your sales conversations? I have a gift for you that is going to show you exactly how to do that. It is my Closing the Sale ebook. It's all about leveling up your confidence, giving you language to use, how to seamlessly move somebody through the sales process. And you can get it right now by going to yoursalesmaven.com/Maven. Go grab it.